doing a summary of chapters 3 and 4 of Second Class Citizen by Buchi Michita. But before I jump right into this, I want to say a happy Good Friday to all my Christian friends out there. All right, so in chapter 3 is titled A Cold Welcome. In chapter 3, first, when Ada gets to the UK with her two children, or with their children, Titi, their first child, and Vicky, in full, known as Victor, their second child, they are taken to an accommodation that Ada is not comfortable with because the accommodation is very small. It's a small room. Ada calls it a half room, that it's not even up to the size of one room. Ada complains about the size of the room to Francis. Francis, in the fit of his anger, almost hits Ada. That night, they have a makeup sex, and Ada takes in for their third child. Meanwhile, their second child is just 9 months old. Francis encourages Ada to get a job as a factory worker, to which Ada resists. Francis is of the opinion that she gets a job as a factory worker because that's the kind of job that Nigerian women or Nigerian wives in London do usually. But Ada feels that she can do better than that because she's not a second class citizen, as Francis would always say to her. So Ada gets a job as a senior library assistant at a library called North Finchley Library in London. We also need to understand in chapter 3 that Francis has no means of livelihood to support himself or his family. So Francis relies on Ada's money to feed himself and to cater for his educational obligations. So that's the summary of chapter 3. All right, so in chapter 4 is titled Daily Minders. So in chapter 4, Ada begins her new job on the 1st of June at North Finchley Library. Ada reaches an agreement with Francis that he would take care of the children since she is working and comes back in the evening. Francis readily agrees to this, but after some time, Francis begins to complain. Ada realizes that the complaint was not exactly coming from Francis, but was as a result of the influence of their neighbors who laugh at him and suggests to him that it is not the responsibility of a man to cater for the children and take care of the children and all of that, that it's the responsibility of his wife. So he's doing his wife's, taking the place of his wife. Ada is very disappointed. The landlord and the landlady begins to mount pressure for Ada and his husband, and her husband rather, Francis, to give the children to a foster parent, which was the common thing in London for Nigerian blacks to give their children out to white foster parents to take care of them. Ada doesn't like this idea. Ada insists on taking care of the children herself. This doesn't go down well with the landlord and the landlady of the house apartment where they occupy. Another couple called the Ojos also tried to suggest to Ada that they get a foster parent, but Ada still insists. So during this period, Ada meets Janet. Janet is a white woman who is married, a white girl, young lady who is married to Mr. Babalola, who comes to London on a northern Nigerian scholarship. Mr. Babalola helps Ada to get a minder called Trudy. Trudy, Trudy. Trudy proves to be an unreliable minder. Trudy doesn't cater for the children as is expected of her. In between, Titi, their first child, Ada's first child, suddenly stops talking. Over time, Ada comes to realize that the reason Titi stops talking is because Francis at the time had threatened to flog her with the belt if she ever speaks any other language other than English language. So this made it difficult for her to communicate because she could only speak Yoruba. Ada reports Trudy to the children officer, to whom Trudy reports directly to, Miss Sterling. Miss Sterling summons Trudy and cautions Trudy. That's the summary of chapter 4. But before I go, I want us to treat or review some questions. So the first question I will be asking is this: what is the name of the chief librarian of the place where Ada got her first job when she got to London? So the name of the chief librarian is Mrs. Conrad, and she's from Greece. She's a Greek woman. Number 2, what is the name of the street where Ada lives? According to, as of chapter 4, the name of the street where Ada lives is called Ashdown Street. Ashdown Street. Ashdown Street. Number 3. Why was it that Nigerian parents in London give out their children to a foster parent? Number 1, the assumption was that white foster parents were better than a Nigerian parent or a black taking care of their own child by themselves. That makes a point for racial discrimination. The notion of white is right, white is the best. Another reason it was so is because the accommodation was always small and poor. So there was always no space for children to play. There was no space for the children to really, do their thing. All right. I thank you very much for your time. I'll see you again in another video. All right. So number 4, what gave Ada a cold welcome? Liverpool and its inhabitants gave Ada a cold welcome. All right. So this brings us to the end of this video on the summary of chapter 3 and 4. I want you to look forward to the summary for the other chapters in my next video. Thank you and see you.